Hello again to all the fine folks tuning in whenever, wherever, and however they're doing so to this podcast recap installment for episode 6 of the sci-fi original series Revival. As always, spoilers abound, so if you're checking this podcast out, may it be after and only after you're fully caught up to and have seen all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 6 of Revival. And we are back at it discussing Bloodlines, and the we in question, myself, Shawn Talley, and joining me as she traditionally does, she is Liz MacArthur. Welcome,
Hi.
Liz.
Thank you. I'm caffeinating, so good luck.
I think all of us are today as we're recording this in the early hours for some. But yeah, thank you, Liz, always for joining us. This program is presented by, hosted on the Paper Street Pictures Podcast Network feed. By now, if you're 6 into us, we're hoping you know where to find this program, be it in audio or video form. But Liz and I are joined once again by the creators, the showrunners, the executive producers. Thank you for joining us again, Aaron B. Koontz and Luke Boyce.
Lovely to be here. Yeah.
We are very glad. We've been talking about getting to this one for a minute. The episode, which you guys kind of called almost a repilot of sorts, was written by the two of you. And let's jump right in because, hoo boy, I may have overused the word doozy prematurely in episode 4, but doozy is what we can call number 6 here. So yes, Bloodlines. We actually open on a text card and enter title, if you will, that reads 20 years before Revival Day. And over that, we hear the screams of childbirth and fade in on younger Mama Cypress. She is in a tub, Wayne right behind her, and a teenage Dana in the background. And she's given a water birth to baby M. And out comes M to the glee of her parents, and the doctor hands her to Patty. And Patty, after a few seconds of joy, kind of then asks aloud, like, why is she crying? Something felt off. We actually jump a little later in the day to Patty then sleeping. Wayne steps out of the hospital room to speak with not Mayor Dillish, but then Sheriff Dillish. Wayne is telling him that they have Martha hooked up to all these machines in an incubator. She's so tiny and fragile. And, Dillish says here that you knew after Patty's cancer that there was a chance of this, complications under development, to which Wayne asked if they had to go through all the hippie mumbo jumbo, like the water birth, and they should have been in the city in a big hospital. Dillish here, very supportive, tells him to be grateful, it's in God's hands, and gives Wayne a gift for Patty. They embrace before Sheriff Dillish exits, clearly a very different relationship than we have seen 20 years later. We jump a bit further, again, and the doctor wheel baby Martha / M into the room where all the Cypresses are sitting. They hand her off to Patty and say to be careful with her. They do need to do some further testing, but she is showing early signs of onset OI. They kind of want him to clarify, but the doctor states, it just means she's very fragile and likely always will be. Dana asks if she can hold her sister as well, to which the doc again reminds her just be very gentle. And the doctor continues on saying, you're going to have to take good care of her. She's going to need you. It's very much a parallel here, of course. If you know how this episode ends, to quote George Lucas, it's like poetry. It rhymes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we go from this shot to the present day in Revival world, that is, to see M effing Cypress now hooded, huffing in a dark hallway with alarms blaring in the background. She turns toward the camera and we go to our opening credits.
Yeah, no, it was fun to get your first introduction to Patty Cypress. I think that first and foremost is really important, and feeling, seeing a little of the pre-Cypresses. And then also I think it's fun to see Dillish and Wayne not wanting to punch each other. So there's a little background there. But I think there's a number of interesting pieces of information that if you're really paying attention to what's there, and we're learning a little bit about Patty. We've talked about her cancer in the past, right? So, we're not hitting you over the head with it, but Patty had cancer and then did not have cancer. So that created a little gap in the age between the two of them. They were trying to have a child, just for background, that's not all on screen. They were trying to have a child, but because of the cancer, they had to kind of wait. And then all of a sudden, her cancer was gone and she was in remission and she was pregnant, which was a very special thing for this family. And it's kind of why it just adds to the sheltering nature of what M. Cypress is to them when you think of just how she came into the world, and all of this, and that they literally call her miracle baby. It just kind of, begins to add all of these layers of protectiveness that the Cypresses will have. And, to see this gentle, sweet moment where they're still concerned because we're learning about the OI for the first time. So she is born with this, as most are. And this is, it's concerning. They don't really know what that is. We obviously as an audience do. And then this parallel, I love that the baby actually does kind of smile, which is weird and cool. So like that happens, which is rad. And then to kind of play with Paul, one of our sound engineers, we were transitioning the breathing of the baby to this like heavy breathing with which is a flash forward. And we got some pushback on that, which was odd. People are like, oh, they're not going to understand like what your flashback and then flash forward. And I'm like, I think the audience will get it. I think that's okay. Very clearly, this is not M, of 2 years ago, randomly. I think, and it's fun to see where she started and what she becomes, and to juxtapose those. So I thought it was a really fun button. But love this tease. I think it's beautifully shot. I think just the lighting, everything, the atmosphere has this like interesting sepia that we kind of added and leaned into a little more in our color grade, just to kind of give, the flashback feel and what this is. And yeah, love this tease.
Yeah, I do too. Outside of the pilot, it's my favorite tease of the season. And it's interesting because the story of episode 6 is a story of pushback essentially on us. Just so many things that either we got pushback on or that we were told we couldn't do for whatever reasons, and sometimes legit reasons. And, but still the narrative of this episode is us fighting for something. And like Aaron said, it wasn't even just the M flash forward that we got pushback on. We got pushback on the whole teaser. I mean, we got told that we weren't learning anything new about the family or anything like that. And we just disagreed. And we just thought, when you're telling a story about sisters, and you're telling the story about people, it helps to have context. Like Aaron said, there's important information in there, and some of it you don't know why it's important yet. You will learn later. But a lot of what we do with this show is we dole out information secretly. You know what I mean? You don't know that information is important yet, but it's important information. And what I love is that they're soaking it up and they're engaged in the relationship. Because they're engaged in the relationship, they're also getting information and they're getting all this wonderful context. So to me, I think that's a big part of this teaser. On top of just sort of, at this point, I'm so invested in the Cypresses as a unit, as a family. I want to see this stuff. I want to see Dana holding little M. Like, now I feel that right after the events of 4 and all this other stuff. Emotionally, this stuff matters. So, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the whole episode. And this kind of starts here. So
I feel like it was interesting. I didn't realize the age difference between those two until I saw that scene, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we've had a few people. Yeah, there was another podcast I think we did where they were asking, what is the age difference? And Dana and M are roughly 15, 16 years apart. Yeah.
We are back and we see the Czech brothers, Andrew, Adam, and now Anthony, who has made it into town. They're walking through an empty warehouse as Anthony is checking out or talking out their situation. He's like, we have to flush the stash now that the cops got McCrae. It's only a matter of time before they find this place and the operation. The head Czech brother also says that they got to move the supply today. They'll set up outside of Wausau, working for the boss himself. This is the first of a few mentions that they are not actually the ones in charge of things and that there is a boss overseeing a lot of this. He tells his brothers that they need to, quote, accelerate expansion plans by getting a female. The others aren't sure what he means, but Tony says that's why he's the brains, and he's going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. So yeah, a lot of info about the operation McCrae was a part of, that demand is currently outweighing the supply for parts, and that Anthony knows exactly who could be a viable female reviver for the cause. We had teased, I think in episode 3, that Dana overplayed her hand by accidentally exposing that M was a reviver, and we'll see here exactly who Anthony's talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of, if you think about the phone call that Anthony had, he references, do you still play poker with that piece of shit Irish cop? Mm-hmm. Piece of shit that he is, McCrae. I forgot that is where we say it. And it's actually via Anthony Czech. We talked about it on a previous podcast with you guys. So, I think it's pretty obvious it's McCrae. And so now it makes sense. When we were breaking this episode and thinking about what's here, it's like, okay, well, McCrae's caught because he's now implicated in the shooting of Dana, but then completely separate from that shooting, in his car are body parts. And that's what we're learning here. We're trying to figure out. Most folks will kind of connect the dots at this point, but obviously once you meet characters and lack thereof of limbs, it'll really coalesce. But yeah, once you think about, okay, if McCrae's caught, they don't trust him. Yeah, he's a piece of shit. We've already established that, right? So now it's just inevitable that they're going to get found, right? He's been going back and forth to this place. He's obviously helping with transport. He's helping, for him to have stuff in the back of his car, that means he's intricately involved. So it's just a matter of time. And now the stakes have been raised. And this is an interesting time to mention that Luke and I at one point talked about somewhere in here, other than the tease, this all being in real time at one point. We really talked about an episode that just took place over an hour. And it became a little too tricky. There were some things that we wanted to kind of do and massage. But once you get into the second half, it basically is real time at that point. We just wanted to set things in motion and really feel, there's good emotion and there's character stuff. And there's character stuff in here too, don't get me wrong, dear God. But I think we wanted this to be the action episode, and it very much, quickly becomes that.
One thing I like about this episode is that so far the whole series is very insular. So we're really hyper focused on the Cypresses and on the events in Wausau and how Wausau is viewing this event. This is the one episode where we kind of start to hint at larger global reactions to this event. You know, Anthony was in New York and now he's talking about somebody, we don't know who, and getting parts out of Wausau. So we're sort of hinting that the world knows, the world is watching Wausau and that it's having an impact on the outside world. And we don't go far into that. We stay, the whole show is meant to be very insular and very localized. But this is kind of that hint that we do intend to hopefully plan on expanding later. And it's kind of fun to dream about what that means and what these parts are, what's being done with these parts, et cetera, and who is actually getting them. So part of a fun thing.
It's the Hollywood elite.
Yeah,
they're selling it to the Hollywood. This is real QAnon, and so it's funny when we were pitching this idea, like development stuff. This was in our, obviously it's from the comics, so this was in our Bible, and we went out to LA to like deep dive into the series and talk about a bunch of stuff. And there was an individual, or remain nameless, that was like, you can't do that. You can't have them selling body parts and whatever they're doing with the body parts, and this isn't going to work. And he's like, no one will believe it. And I was like, excuse me, are you aware of QAnon? Like, are you aware of what people believe? Like, they believe that they're taking children and like drinking their blood in order to live for like this is completely and utter insane. Like, this stuff has been around forever.
It's completely believable. Yeah. It's believable.
The person who
it's also, I think people would
played
do
the
it.
Winklevoss twins in The Social Network. He's just trying to throw them off the scent.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. But I mean, this is something that I think if they're like, wait a second, here's people who can't die, they're healing, there's something in them and I want it and I'm rich. So I get it for me and I want to figure that out. There's a scene that was also cut, which might make it in season 2, but whatever. I guess it's a season 2 spoiler. But there was a scene where there were people who were being baptized just in the water in Wausau, just regularly in the streams that were there, because not where water's looking like there might be a special-ish water stuff that Ibrahim's looking into, but just like general water coming out of the city, because they're like, we need to get access to this. Maybe there's something, and you see them like baptizing a sick kid. And it was a really cool scene. It was actually integrated in a hunt for Arlene, when Arlene was a bigger piece. And you see this, and then Arlene's there and all this, and it would have been a really fun scene, but it ended up getting cut. But it just kind of, yeah, exactly. It just illustrates, as Luke was saying, that there is still an outside presence. And look, we were under lockdown for 30 days. The CDC has a presence. I mean, so there's a federal understanding. There's a national understanding of what's going on. We're just not focused on that part of the story right now. But the fact that Anthony got back in and what they're doing with Reviver parts and everything was a fun thing to explore, and a great moment from the comic.
Yeah, the comic actually does a thing that I wish we could have done, but obviously scope and budget doesn't allow. But, at the checkpoints, there's just lines and lines of cars, and there's just absolute chaos at all the checkpoints of people trying to get into Wausau and can't get into Wausau. And the original version of this story happens within that context with the trucks, and the body parts and stuff in the comics. So we obviously changed that because of what we had to do in our medium. But that, in our minds, that's still sort of a valid concept that people would want to get into Wausau, right? Like, this is, look, the dead have come back to life. I think we can all imagine what certain Americans would probably think of that from a religious perspective or whatever cuckoo thing people come up with. Sometimes I'm just amazed at what people...
I guess I can drop the real spoiler of all spoilers, that in season 2, the boss that he's talking about is Vladimir Putin. So
I knew it.
I just thought I'd bring it up.
For a second, I was like, my chest started to get tight. I was like, Aaron, what are you doing?
It's Putin.
It makes sense to me.
Stay tuned.
It was on my murder board, actually. So.
Yeah.
Hold on, don't jump ahead yet. We're now on Dana, still in her hospital bed, who was awakened by Deputy Gunderson hovering over her. Nothing funny or innocent about this bumblefuck anymore, but we will get there. Gunderson was alerting her that reporter Maytel was there to see her. Dana jokes that Gunderson should stay because for all she knows, maybe she could be her actual killer. A line that, again, plays differently now, but we will get there. May claps back with, you're not even dead. She says something like, I'm starting to wish I was now that you're here. Dana sees May has her Black Deer files with her. She said, did you steal police files? Are you trying to get me arrested? Are you trying to get arrested? No, she says, this will be quick. She does ask for some privacy, and Gunderson goes to step out, but Dana says, no, stay here. I don't trust her. Again, a line that plays very differently now that we know, but we will get there. Dana stuffs the folder into her side table's drawer, and May leans in to whisper to her and says something like, I think the reason you were shot is because you're getting too close to the truth about Jesse and about... Dana cuts her off and says, you're getting too close to my face. May continues that she thinks it's all tied together, you being shot, Aaron, the Black Deer case. Dana says, you think McCrae had something to do with the case? To which May says, no, I don't think he shot you. I think he was set up. At this point, Dana, who, again, Mel, hilarious throughout this episode with her clips from the bed, starts joking with Gunderson about like, uh-oh, corrupt police force. What, am I the corrupt cop? Did I shoot myself? And again, Gunderson plays along nervously, and we know why. But again, we will get there. So May pleads one last time to just please give it a look for the notes she made in the files. But Brent escorts her out. Dana actually considers for a moment, but then slams the drawer shut. We find Dr. Ibrahim entering his temporary digs. We see an open Koran on the bed as we move across the space, and also see that he has his own little kind of lab set up in the room. He breaks out some of the samples that he took with him upon his demotion of sorts, and he takes a slide out with some of the yellow stuff on it and puts it under his microscope and seems satisfied with what he sees.
These two scenes are actually very important. And I think it's also, there's another scene coming up here too, that's kind of the calm before the storm of this episode. There's some good information when to get across. I think also just continuing to see that like Dana and May just do not like each other, right? So it's another one of those, like, what happened there? What's the background of that? And that's something that I think will be fun to explore and see, especially as we get into these future episodes. And this idea, like you saw in the tease of 4, that May was given this flash drive from the masked man, who we now know is the Burt Man. So why is he working with the press? And then now you see the Burt Man takes this Black Deer file, and then that also makes its way to May. So now clearly they're in, I don't know, cahoots. Something is going on, and on some level, or a minimum is just giving all this to the press to trust her for some reason. And she is now, for some reason, coming to Dana to say this. And I think realizing that Dana was shot by a police officer. And if you start to like deconstruct this for a second, you don't trust the police. And that's why clearly May does not trust the police. That's been established throughout these episodes. And then you're shot by a police officer. Well, maybe you are someone I can trust now, right? Because you're exposing some of this, or maybe there's something that's here, and she starts to say some things here, but Dana also just can't stand May and wants nothing to do with her. So it's just there's a lot of interesting things that are there. I think it's a little on the nose, but it's pretty noticeable that there might be something important in that file that's in her desk that she pushes away. So we definitely want you to remember that. But by the way, yes, that little funny back and forth quip between Brent and Dana was mainly improvised. Like there was a bit there, I'm trying to remember exactly what was written, but there was a bit there where she's like, no, I trust you. And it's like, you can be my actual shooter. And it's like, oh, there it is, corruption on the police force. And there's something that was written there. But then she goes further and is like, extra, and does all that. and then there was a line about, you shot me, but I shot me. And then Brent's like, doing this whole thing. And Mark Little. And it's just so funny how the 100% improvised line is the rock to the core of the thing. Like whatever he's mumbling there is completely him. That's all Mark Little. He's just hilarious. And so love that little interaction. And then in regards to the Ibrahim scene, last we saw, he was quote unquote demoted. He's not allowed to kind of move forward in this certain type of questioning or research that Carla's doing, that they're wanting to push forward, and he doesn't want to do this, but he still wants to be working. So he's taken his work home with him so that he can kind of, away from Carla, away from people who aren't understanding what he's doing. And I think we just want to establish that Ibrahim's still moving that story forward, even though he might not be empowered to do it in the way that he was before.
Back to Dana's hospital bed, she's now being serenaded by Lester. This time he's going overly specific about the mix of flowers in his bouquet. One of my favorite things about Lester so far is how hyper-specific he is about everything. Mm-hmm. But Dana shoos him out of the room, and Wayne enters thereafter with a box of donuts. Dana, again, with a hilariously elated reaction to this one of the many funny asides, faces, and lines from this episode. But the nurse berates Wayne for being one of a long line of visitors who keep bringing her treats. Some kind of
Wait,
donut.
is this when the Harry and the Hendersons thing happened?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Not yet.
Edit that out.
Trust me, that's coming. No. We'll talk about it. Wayne also delivers a bag of clothes and some necessities for Dana that she requested. He says it's tough to see her in this state and that it happened on his watch. He wonders, why McCrae would be involved with the checks. Why was the professor involved? Dana suggests that he was maybe trying to confess something to her, again, evading the M of it all when trying to be honest about it. She says she did shoot back at the gunman and got him in the right arm. She asks if McCrae has a wound there by chance, and Wayne says no. So she says, oh, it looks like he might have indeed been framed. So Wayne says she was right to want to get out of Wausau, that when they're on the other side of all of this, he'll give her a letter of recommendation or whatever she needs. And we are now on the Deputy Gunderson end of a phone conversation he's having inside of his police cruiser, saying things like, I know, I'll take care of it. He gets hung up on, which again, a great reaction by him, which angers him. He smacks the steering wheel and kind of winces when he hurts his right arm. Again, we will get there. A lot of people had noticed some stuff in the previous episode, as we talked about in the speculation bit prior. Now at Dana's house, Emma is babysitting, entertaining both Cooper and Jordan. I think they're playing some board games here. She texts Rhodey during this and asks if they can see each other. Jordan hears what sounds like a car pulling up out front, so she walks to the front window and sees big, tall Adam Check standing out front, who kind of holds up his hands and tells her to stay quiet. Breaking and entering about to happen.
The way Samir blocked this scene, with Jordan, moving from the chair to the window, it's very Spielbergian, and it was exactly what Aaron and I were kind of imagining in that. So I love that part. And Adam, Joe Delphine, just so creepy, so weird in that window. Yeah. I love him.
Yeah, there was like one take, basically. We were last 1 minute to go. This is it, get him and get in that right spot to do the definitely a complicated bit. Yeah, love that. And just the curiosity of Jordan, I think is just fun to kind of see that in her face, and which will pay off later. I also want to flag that not flag, but just point out, I really love the scene with Wayne and Dana at the bed. It's one of my favorite scenes in the episode because it really goes back to, it's another one of those callbacks really from the first episode, where the first time you meet, Wayne, is him saying, well, sure as hell isn't my fault, right? He's immediately deflecting, defending, possibly gaslighting, and his own daughter. And because he's mad that she's leaving. And how the hell could you leave us? And then now seeing all of this stuff that's going wrong and everything that's falling apart in his town. And he's like, I understand now why you wanted to leave. And I think that's a big turn for Wayne to be able to do. And he plays it really well. And what I love is, originally we had something written there as a reaction from Dana. And then talking with Mel, we actually pulled that line out and just sat on her look, where she does this nod, this silent nod. And I always think if you can, any aspiring screenwriters, if you can remove a line with a look, it's going to be better every single time if you have the right actors, I will say. If you don't have the right actor, you have to write every damn thing. But, obviously with Mel, we don't have to worry about that. And she was just so special there. And I just think it's a really, really great moment, that it took 6 episodes to get to a point where he can understand why his daughter is wanting to get out of there. And now he's supporting it. But I think that was a good thing and a great moment between 2 great actors.
Also, just want to call out the nurse Starlene is a local comedian from, I think it's New Brunswick, or New Brunswick. Yeah. Hilarious comedian. So excited to have her in this, and she just does a great job. She's really good, and she's really funny. Yeah, if you get a chance, go find her stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, Nikki Payne. Yeah, she is great, and has 2 really fun moments in this episode. She actually had another moment that got cut that was in episode 2.
Yeah.
When they're all the chaos in the hospital, and they turn a corner, and Ibrahim's hiding because he's freaked out, and he's just because he's not equipped for this, and they're like, Doc, where'd she go? And Wayne's all yelling, and then she's like, he's too scared, it's over there, and does this whole thing, and it was so funny, but the scene is playing so tense.
Yeah.
Now we're like, this is actually one of those times where it's kind of taking away, so we cut that, but it was a great moment from her. I think Nikki delivered a wonderful delivery there, but Mel loved her too. They had a blast together.
I'll look for her on the blooper reel that we're putting together.
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah.
We are now on McCrae being interrogated by JP. He says he's just a middleman, that he made more money running parts just last week than the Force pays him in a year. And also says, I quit. Wayne taps the door here. JP actually steps out and says, it's not McCrae. Nothing's adding up as far as what he's been told so far. This is the first of a couple McCrae moments, and this is the tame one comparatively. We'll get to the other one. That's him just going off on the next bit here. Wayne asks if there's anything new on the Reviver parts in the trunk. JP says it's somebody young, likely in their 20s. Not a lot of young Revivers that I'm aware of, Wayne asides. And then JP plays Wayne the concert clip of Rhodey cutting himself up on stage. Wayne tells him he knows that kid. He's dating Martha.
He barely needed an excuse.
He was looking for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, it was fun to think about too, of if you find out that a Reviver is cutting off their body parts, and then you see footage of someone cutting themselves on stage and they happen to be young, like, okay, this totally correlates. And then the fact that he's dating my daughter, okay, right? Like, dude, that's bad timing. Bad timing, Rhodey.
Light a candle, dude. Indeed. We actually cut here to Wayne pulling up to a large facility, and he pulls Rhodey out, already handcuffed, from the back seat and walks up to the doors, gives a knock. They open, and he escorts Rhodey in and says, "Welcome to Riverside." So we will see a lot more of this place forthcoming here. Yep. Ibrahim, also bearing the gift of donuts, is now visiting Dana, who recites an entire bit from the aforementioned Harry and the Hendersons movie that I'm glad that, well, they do say it outright, even if you didn't catch it right away. It's, Aaron and I have talked about that scene many times in our lives. It's very much the Iron Will, like, go on, get.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Lithgow.
It's the scene that shocked our generation.
Right.
I think of it every day.
Deep cut, but it's not me.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it was weird. This was a first draft thing that I just kept expecting someone to say, you can't do it. It's not going to work. Doesn't work. I wrote it expecting it to be cut, but I never wanted to cut it. But part of it is really, honestly, this is probably, we said there's no filler. This is probably the only filler moment in the entire season. And the reason is because when Ibrahim comes in, we just need to get Dana sending him to the house so he can go do this. And we didn't want to do a phone call. We wanted to be in person. So, and he should visit her in the hospital anyway. So it makes sense. So what's a way to like cut in mid-conversation and just send him away as fast as we can? But then, it does give some character. It's like Dana's into pop culture. Yeah. Ibrahim has, I love how Andy plays like, you were joking. That's a joke? Like has no clue, no clue what it is. And that's what makes it kind of work. But there is nothing, there's no like Easter eggs within Harry and the Hendersons or anything like that. It's just a little piece of end of a conversation to get us to Ibrahim, her sending Ibrahim to go to the house.
I like to imagine that conversation was really like, well, we don't want to do a phone call. Should we Harry and the Hendersons? Like, is it now? It's the time.
I'm just laughing that Aaron and Luke have mentioned how much stuff they got pushed back on, and like Aaron had that all the way through production. It's like,
there's a couple things like that where we're like, oh no, I guess we're doing this.
Yeah. And there were a couple too. Like, I mean, there's a scene in episode 10 that I wrote like literally the day before, delivered a draft, and they're like, we're shooting it this day. And I'm like, and it's there. And actually it's a good scene. But so some of that stuff happened.
When we finally get there.
I'll point
we can tell what random pop culture reference it was that was.
No, it's not a pop culture.
It's not that. Okay.
No.
To Aaron's point, the mission was to get Ibrahim to go check on the kids. She says, they're not answering the phone, but M's probably just playing video games with them. So back to Riverside, we find Rhodey being locked in a room that's essentially a cell. I mean, this is a prison of sorts. He's telling him, you can't keep me here, kind of pleading, and then you hear a voice. Ain't nothing you can do, the voice says through a vent. In the neighboring cell is none other than Miles Miller, who tells him it is all fucked in here. They're basically prisoners. He has less rights as a reviver than he did as a criminal.
I mean, Josh Curtis just killing it, basically, over and over every time he shows up on screen.
Yeah, he steals. The amount of times I'm watching this scene, and I'm like, oh my God, he's too good of an actor for our show. Like, it's just like, he's so good in this moment. All of our actors are amazing, but like in this moment just feels like so elevated. I hate to use that word in that way. Like, it's just so, he brings so much pathos and so much heartache to what's going on, because you're seeing someone who starts out as like, hey, horse people are so weird, and he's kind of got this goofy side and you're all scared of him, but he's not. It's really heartbreaking for me to see someone who's like, just leave me alone. And then he's being used for psychological and physical torture to test, subjugation to all this, which obviously is a massive, that was a parallel. It literally happened where they use criminals and prisoners to do this, and it's horrible. And then now he's just broken, beaten down, and you're like, what is happening to them in there? And you have to think about it too. Like, he's a reviver, so he has the ability to heal and different stuff. So like, that this, what was alluded to in episodes 4 and 5 with the snake venom that Carla's mentioning, pretty much that's what's happening to him in here, right? And we'll get to see more of that as the episodes go. But just to see him there, and then the line of, I had more rights as a criminal as I do as a reviver, is just pretty crazy. I mean, like, because truly, if you just change the word reviver to immigrant, that word works because, you know, the crimes that people, misdemeanor crimes, you know, here in the United States that people go through are now they're being deported and they're being sent to camps and stuff. Like, it's just completely and utterly insane. And it's just a weird thing that, you know, we didn't mean for this to be preachy, but now all of a sudden it's becoming it just by the nature of what we're saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's happening in the world and what's here is just so real. And it's like, yep, we're saying it. We're pushing that button. But yeah, but Josh Curtis is such a gem.
Also, just interesting the way it's framed, how it's the first time we're ever seeing Riverside. We've heard about camps, but now we not only see it, we have a name for it. You know, we're implying a lot, especially with Wayne knocks on the door. This seems routine. And then you get in there, someone's already there. Again, routine makes you wonder, okay, how many other revivers has Wayne already put in this? You know, like, this has escalated already. And it's done with basically like 2 quick scenes. And, you know, I'm happy how well that worked out. So yeah, we're now seeing just this, you know, this side escalation point that I think is really important too.
No, for sure. Back at Dana's house, Ibrahim walks up and immediately kind of sees the doors partially open, enters, and notices right away things are bad. He calls Dana, tells her there is no one there, everything's been ransacked. Dana says tell her every single thing he sees, and he describes a comic on the wall with a knife through it. This is the same hack/slash book that Andrew Czech had given Dana for Cooper early on in the season to read. Dana immediately says the Czech brothers took him. So, leaving their calling card.
He said it would come back around.
Oh, yeah.
There was a mention of like, yeah, no, there's a reason. It's not just an Easter egg. It's a setup for something, and you want to remember it. And it all tracks. And I'm not surprised that, you know, people will connect the dots that, like, you need to get a woman, get a young one. I mean, that's going to happen and where they're going. But I think it's, I do wish that we could have, there was written a whole scene where they're in the house and like Cooper was hiding and all this stuff. And it obviously was just in an episode that's so packed to the brim, you know, it just kind of became something that needed to be cut. Like, I actually agreed with it. It was one of the early ones. I was like, yeah, we need to find space just for the character moments rather than this, because we'll get the point across. And later when, you know, there's an important line, which is a chilling line, but it's when Anthony says, the way you shivered when I put that knife to Cooper's throat, right? And to me, that's all you need to know. I don't need to see the struggle. I don't need to see Em fighting or not or whatever, because we know what Em's capable of. We know she's strong, but the knife to Cooper's throat, and she's going to stop immediately and she's going to go with them. And also, I don't know that you need to see a knife to like 9-year-old's throat. I don't think I need to show that. I think hearing that that's happened is more than enough and chilling enough.
Yeah, the images in people's heads a lot of the time are more so than the visual. But Dana, upon hanging up the phone, gets up to get dressed. She falls, and the nurses, you know, stop her and give her another, what she called earlier, a pterodactyl shot. A few times that's mentioned throughout here. At the warehouse, the Czechs walk in, and we see Tommy, the reviver who they're cutting limbs off of for their parts dealings. Across the room, we also find that they have Em chained up to a chair. Anthony Czech tells her that Cooper will be fine, but Jordan is going to be collateral damage in all of this, and that she, Em that is, will be the, quote, pretty little face of our boss's new franchise. And Em does a little lunge at Anthony, which he actually kind of does get spooked a bit and backs up, because I think, you know, they know the strength is a thing. I think at this point, at least some of the Czechs have experienced it. Back in Dana's room, she's awakened when Gunderson is fiddling with her IV. Again, we'll get there. Not something that seems innocent anymore. Oh wait, we're finally here. Actually, about to be there. But yeah, she tells him the Czechs took them, and the Gunderson said he knows. Ibrahim told them. She asks where the dad is, and does he know? That's when we actually cut to Wayne interrogating McCrae in a much more bad cop way than JP was. He's yanking his rat tail, he's pulling his piece and sticking it in his crotch. McCrae swears he has nothing at all to do with Dana. He mentions he's not afraid of the Czechs, but afraid of who they work for. You might as well kill him. He's not going to give up names. But a lot of funny dialogue from McCrae here. I don't know if you guys leaned into the Irish thing that way, or if that was a little bit of Nathan Dale's, or how did he kind of concoct the accent and everything?
Yeah, it was him to kind of lean into it, because when you get scared, sometimes like you go back to you know, some when you were younger and things like that. So we talked about that a little bit. Yeah, and then Newman's my beloved pug who passed a few years ago. But yeah, no, it's a fun scene, and then pulling him from the rat tail, I thought was like, Wayne has to do this at some point. Yeah. Just felt like if we're not, what are we doing? Like,
Chekhov's rat tail. If you're gonna have that rat tail,
Chekhov's rat tail.
You gotta pull it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes, that's perfect.
David's ability to have this controlled anger and chaos in the moment, I think, is actually one of my favorite parts about this scene. Just how you kind of believe, and I think this is one of the importance of the way we've structured Wayne. You kind of believe he would probably actually just shoot shoot McCrae in the junk at that point, I think. So kudos to David for
his grandson. Yeah, I mean, it's his grandson and his daughter, have been taken. I think you do anything.
Yeah, start with a kneecap, see what he does, see what he says.
Yeah.
Start with a rat tail.
Feel that if it's shut off, but yeah. Dana answers a phone call from none other than Anthony Check. She wants to know that her family's safe. Anthony does let her speak to Cooper for a quick moment before returning to business. He says McCrae being taken out of the equation made things complicated for everyone because she asks, why would you do this? We had a truce. She's like, you're a cop, I'm a criminal. This is not that surprising. But yeah, he needs somebody to help them now get through the checkpoints across the border now that McCrae is out of the picture. She tells him to keep his hands off the sister, to which, she says, she stole from my family. It's only fair I steal from yours. And reminds her this was all Dana's doing, as we mentioned before, letting it slip that M was a reviver. He threatens to carve up Cooper into 1,000 little pieces unless she plays ball and helps them. He gives Dana the truck's license plates, their time of arrival or estimated time of arrival, and then also which checkpoints they'll be exiting. They mention the eastern point and the southern point. Dana writes this info down kind of scratchily, quickly. The men will call Anthony when they're safely across, and if they do not, every cypress will be thrown into a wood chipper. To which Phil has a little fun here with the, cypress trees. Get it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's, and then he ends with toodles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the script, Toodles?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was in the script. Yeah, that was in the script. Yeah, it was always meant to be, there's a playfulness to the menace. And I think that's what's more menacing. I think it's scarier when he's like, goes up to M and he's like, I'm not a savage. He has his moral, this like understanding of what he thinks is right and wrong, and what's there. And he finds himself funny. And I thought that was fun just to interject small little moments of that, and I like the line about therapy, but I turned out great and whatever. And I think he thinks that. I actually think he believes that he turned out great, with what it is and what's going on. He's just an opportunistic guy. But that scene, I will flag to what are they eating? I don't know. There's a lot of delicate, interesting meats that are there. So just something to
that was a whole thing in that scene that got cut a little bit as we were going to feed Cooper a burger. He was going to give him a burger, and there was a whole element to that we kind of pulled back on.
Yeah, I didn't even think that they might be eating not other fauna cooked.
Yeah. It was
charcuterie.
Yeah. But and then I do like that you mentioned the piece with Brent and if you look at, there's a lot of hints to Brent, throughout this as we're getting up to the reveal here, but it opens with him right in front of her face. Right. So the very first thing you're seeing, which I thought was fun, which is you start with who shot Dana. Right. And you think it's McCrae. And then the very first thing you see, after the tease is Brent right in your face. And we're like, we're telling you. And in my mind, he was trying to see, could I put a pillow? What can I do? What are the things that could possibly be done? How can you work this out? And then there was actually a scene that was cut. So originally we were going to reveal Brent at the end of episode 5. And actually in the car, when we cut away, when he punches the car after that phone call, and he goes, you actually see him pull his shirt down and you reveal the wound that he's got that's coming loose, and he's there. And you hear more of the phone call where he's like, I'll take care of her, whatever. Just leave me alone. He's being more overt with this, which is actually would be fun bloopers because there's a lot of random stuff that Mark Little does there. That's actually really funny. Just to let you know for sure, oh my God, he's the shooter. And then McCrae gets captured with the body parts. And you're like, okay, this is a thing. But we decided once we saw the way that he was revealed, this shit, that he does with Dana, it was this makes more sense. I think it's really fun to kind of hold this into this part of the episode. And then that allowed us to make other cuts, which we needed to for time. But one was Brent actually going into one of the rooms with one of the nurses, and then he's putting an IV, an injection into the IV bag. And Dana's thing there. And then actually what's happening is, and I still believe that he's already done this, that he has injected her IV bag with something that's going to kill her. And then when she gets up after the phone call and realizes what's happened, she rips the IV out and it actually saves her life. And she has no idea, which was always a fun thing that's there. It's not necessarily on the screen anymore, but I like to believe it still happened because I thought it was fun.
I don't know how I'm going to watch a TV show anymore after this, and not get to talk to the writers and producers after each episode.
Yeah, I mean, there's, it's funny because you're thinking Dana is there. So how many opportunities does Brent have to actually finish the job at this point? But now you look at it and you go, okay, now I know why he's always there. Right. And there's other hints too. When we get to the end of the season, there's stuff that happens in the hospital room that I think will be fun to go back and think about. But yeah, the hints are there. The story under the story is there. We just, obviously we don't have a lot of time to do it all, but man, there was some fun stuff. I mean, the iterations too of this episode were robust because it was so much. This episode was always a lot and just had to constantly get pared down.
How close to this episode coming out were you fiddling with it?
Oh, every episode. You're up until the last minute. You're fiddling with every episode, every single one.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that we probably didn't change a ton, but right before shooting was the barn in episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And we knew that had to be it. And we weren't going to really mess with that. Beyond that, everything, especially now that we're into our second block, which is Samir Rahim, who's our director, all of his episodes from 6 through 10, all of them were last second changes. I mean, including things after we shot that were changed. There are plenty of things in this episode that were not shot with this intention, right? And they talk about, and I reference this, I tweeted about this as well, but the movie you write, movie you shoot, movie you make, right? And this really was a thing where we're looking at all of the footage and trying to recontextualize how to make scenes work. Because the first cuts, we had cut so much out of this episode at the last minute because everybody was so worried about budget and time and everything that it actually came under time. So then we had to fill space, but we needed to anyway because there were things that weren't tracking, which we'll get into later here, that I thought were very important. But yeah, this episode 6, 7, 10 were probably where the most last second changes were coming in.
Yeah, this scene is a good example of that because there was supposed to be the fight between Brent and Dana was actually going to happen at a gas station. So the whole thing was she actually goes with Brent and discovers in the car on the way there that Brent is the killer and then basically tricks him into pulling into a gas station and then tries to kill him there. It was this big...
She literally would look over at his driver's right arm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
That's the reason why it's the right arm.
Yeah.
The reason why it's the right arm is because he was meant to be driving and it would be... So actually, if you look where she punches him, it's kind of not where she would... But it had to be the right arm though, because he was going to be driving. And then she would see it quickly and then act like, oh my God. And then we're feeling the tension in the car. He doesn't know that she sees it. And it was building. And then at the gas station, she goes in, there's a guy with headphones. The gas station is fun scene. And then she is I need to go to the bathroom. I'm not feeling well. And then goes in and then sneaks out, takes a hot coffee thing and smashes over his head and he's cut up. And then she sets off there's a gas thing in there. So there was a fun bit where I love this scene. I really love it. I wish we could have shot it. I think it would have been...
the scene in Grosse Pointe Blank where they have the fight in the convenience store? Think that, basically.
Yeah.
I got you.
There was a moment where, just real quick, just indulge me because no one will ever get to see it because I don't get to write it now. But where she turns on a gas thing. There's a, one of those portable things, the aerosol
propane?
things. Propane. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Propane. So she turns it on, you hear the hissing, and then Brent's coming around the corner with the gun to where the hissing is, and it's there. And then she's on the other side, and then you see this match fly through the air, slow motion. It falls in front of it, and then we're all pause, and then nothing happens. And it doesn't ignite, it doesn't there. And then Dana has to tackle him and fight him anyway. And it's it was just such a she thought she had this perfect plan and it didn't work. And then she takes the broken thing and then stabs that in his neck. It was pretty gnarly and actually was not as crazy of a total fight than what's in the hospital, but it was just a matter of location moving and different things and how that worked.
It was going to be that way up until I think a couple days before we shot it. And it just was one of those things where, Samir was I think you should move it to the hospital. But this is the tension of this is great, but timing and schedule, it's just all, and then we couldn't find a gas station. Honestly, that was a big part of it too. It's trying to find a gas station who would let you film a scene like that is not an easy thing to do, especially on a schedule like ours. So it got rewritten pretty close to filming. I believe it was pretty much that week that we were doing it.
Again, like Liz said, not everybody gets this type of insight or backstory of what it was going to be, but as it plays, to people just watching it, some people picked up on the arm swat in the previous episode. They expressed as much on Twitter and other places, and then in this one a couple more times with the arm, and it was kind of a done deal for a lot of folks. But the way the reveal happens, which I'll go into right now, is still money, and so is the way the fight played out. So bravo to everybody for the last second scramble on it. But so Dana actually tells Gunderson, pull the car around. He makes an excuse, so Dana smacks him in the arm, as I said. She calls the nurse, asks to give one more pterodactyl shot, and the nurse refusing, but she does convince her when she says, like, no, my family, they're in trouble, I gotta go. So when the nurse exits, Dana grabs her phone, dials Wayne. She tells him to head to the eastern checkpoint. Brent and her will head to the southern checkpoint. She's kind of losing her shit about it all, trying to say all the info to Wayne as quick as possible. And, just please trust her. So the nurse enters, gives her the shot, exits again. As Gunderson re-enters, tells them they're good to go. I said we will get here. The audience has now gotten here. Everybody's gotten here. Dana gets here now when she looks at his right arm, which is bleeding through the sleeve. Suddenly, Deputy Yuckity Yuck here is now not the all shucks guy we were led to believe. Halfway sedated, Dana kind of registers it. He registers as she's registering it and says, well, shit. He's the one who indeed was the shooter in the woods that got smacked by M's firing into the woods at him. But yeah,
it's literally him in the woods, by the way. So like it is him in the mask. Like we have the actor there in the mask in the woods, right? Who's there? And if you recall that Lester kind of helped us here because he said those are the masks of said perpetrators, right? So we know that perpetrators use it. So it was definitely meant to be a misdirect of you thinking it's the masked man who's out there. But it's like we should really stop selling them on the fact that they're the said perpetrators. So like because they do a lot of if you're hiding in the woods, it's kind of like what you would wear for both. I think both examples make sense to be wearing, one of those types of masks.
Do people wear those for skiing or just for killing?
Exactly. That's you're making Lester's point. Yeah. So was that. But yeah, that was really great. I love that they're looking into the lens, and how that reveal is. And I think Mark Little does something really special in just how he shifts, going into this next beat.
Yeah. The next beat being her saying, it was you? He reaches for his gun, to which Dana starts to plead with him. Buddy, come on, you don't have to do this. He responds, for once in your goddamn life, shut that trap of yours. He starts to roll the TV cart in front of the door to block it. And while doing so, Dana does reach and grab her bedpan, which is not empty, we find out. Brent turns up the volume on the TV, and to the tune of Stan Bush's Never Surrender from the movie Kickboxer, we get a full-on fight scene here, as we've been teasing this whole time. He charges at her with the gun. She swats it with the bedpan, and I'm swatting my headphones for the viewers. Yeah, he gets piss thrown on him. His words, not mine. He slings her over the bed, gives her a couple really good kicks to the stomach, and she's recently stapled and gunshotted. He tries to choke her, and she kind of backs him into the cabinets and breaks free. Another bedpan smack to the head. We actually get a few fun shots in the fight in the reflection of the tube TV, which I very much liked.
That was New York Ninja. So our friends at Trigger Syndrome helped us out there. Yeah, props. So the key is we couldn't use the actual music video for Never Surrender is the Kickboxer, right? And that's Jean-Claude Van Damme. We could not get the rights to that music video. So we had to create our own version of a 80s martial arts movie. And our friends of Vinegar Syndrome helped us out there with New York Ninja, which was a lot of fun to do. It's insane. That movie's absolutely bonkers. So yeah,
it looked like it.
Yeah.
And then, this moment, the first of, I would argue, 2, maybe 3 jump out of your chair moments. And again, social media agreed on the night. I would argue in this episode, Dana picks up that television set, and while standing over Gunderson, who kind of gargles through his own blood, won't you just die? She slams said television down on his head with malice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys or Liz, but I kind of yelled some version of, oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I was screaming the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, we played with it because we weren't sure. It's like, is this too much at the moment? But it was nice to see everyone pretty much is like, yeah, no, do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
it's not just a comedy, it's a horror comedy.
Yeah. And I think, when he moves that TV in front of the door, it's just like, holy shit, like this guy. And then the way he talks to her, I think gets all the point across. It's not just, I'm trying to survive this moment. It's like, holy fuck, like this guy is trying to kill me, has been trying to kill me. And the level of deceit of how long is this going on? How long we were supposed to be friends and partners and all this. And like that level of deceit, I think is all coming out. And it's also, the more I thought about it when we were in the edit, and I don't even know if Luke, if you and I talked about this, but I remember thinking when we were discussing whether or not the TV was too much or different things, and in the edit we were looking at other ideas. But I remember thinking there's something about the Cypress sisters that when you push them too far, they snap. And there was a parallel there to Dana being like, fuck no. And then obviously we're going to get to M's fuck no upcoming. But I think that was really fun to do and see. It is sad to say goodbye to Deputy Brent Gunderson, I must say. There are flashbacks coming which will help recontextualize some of the things and some of the background of Brent. You'll see that, and I think it'll help give an understanding. And then we still get some fun little Brent moments within that. So I think people will enjoy that in a future episode. But yeah, this was a blast. I mean, and even though, like Luke was saying, this was so last second, Max White, our stunt coordinator, our wonderful stunt performers, I remember, we just had 2 little beds, and I have tons of footage on my phone of just like different iterations of them doing this. And everybody was like, you got to do less. We can't fill it. We can't make our day. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, Max, now is where you drag her away from this. And then this stuff and ever. And even Samir, our wonderful director, was just like, I don't know, man. I'm like, we can do it. Listen, just trust me. Like, if not, we'll pare it down on the day. Like, we'll cut out moments. I was like, you have this version, but let's try. But I really wanted the like drag and going for the gun and some of this stuff. And then the piss, like they actually had to go back and reshoot that line because they missed it in the blocking in the first version, and get him like, you threw piss on me. Because it's just, what's the best way to kind of like a fuck you back to him is to like piss on him in his face. I think is great. And and again, reminds you, it's meant to be a fun show. This is a crazy scene. It's a fight for our life, but you have Never Surrender from Kickboxer playing, so on the nose. We know it. We love it. Obsessed with it. One of our favorite songs. Literally, by the way, very quickly, Luke and I were talking about which song to play for that. We were like, okay, a music video is playing. He turns up the volume to drown out the noise so that they can have their fight when this has to happen. And we were like, which song could we get? Because just for context, the original version of the scene was a much bigger fight in the hospital. Then it got moved to the gas station, and we actually moved it back and then pared it down. So we'd already planned on getting licensing of a song, but then we moved away from it. We were moving to the gas station scene. So, but then now when we had to move it back in, I'm like, oh my God, we have to get a music video again. So we had to scramble as fast as we could. And Luke and I are in the office, like throwing out ideas. And actually, Shawn, this is when we sent you a bunch of stuff too. Like, do you have ideas of songs? And you were sending us some songs as well. We're trying to come up with stuff. And then Luke said, completely unaware, was like, you know what song would be perfect? Never Surrender by Kickboxer. And I was like, man, that would be so fun. And then little did I realize, and I knew it was Stan Bush, but Lenny Macaluso, who I must shout out, who has just helped us out, we licensed a song at Scare Package 2, and with him and Stan Bush as well. And he was really, really kind, gave us a great deal. And then I messaged him, I was like, hey man, what else do you have? And he just says, oh, I have the rights to Never Surrender from Kickboxer. Literally like an hour after Luke said that out loud. And I'm like, you guys aren't going to believe this. Holy shit.
Crazy.
This is insane. The only problem was the music video had Jean-Claude Van Damme. So, we don't have his likeness rights. So we couldn't do that. But other than that, we were like, we're going to figure this all out. And so it was just a really special thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
song was in the list I sent Aaron too. That was one of the songs I listed.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. And it worked out, and so to have that, and then like you threw piss on me and all this, which we were told to cut, of course, I think is so fun and just adds to the vibe. And this is also the last, even though it's serious, and 10 seconds later she's smashing a TV, a la Scream, a la Grosse Point Blank. There's great TV kills, by the way, and so must pay our respects to the TV killers of prior. And so, but I think it's a fun way to do that. Originally, she was pulling a cord. She like had fallen over and he was coming to her. And then she pulled a cord and the TV was up in the corner and then it fell on his head. And that's how he died. But we had already established the TV earlier in episode 5 because we shot episode 5, goddamn, the first day. So then I couldn't do the thing I wanted to do because we'd already established the TV. And so like, this is all this craziness, that comes in of like, you have to like change all these things up. But it worked. It worked all told.
You said it was a scramble in a sort of last few minutes decision to go back to the hospital and do it. Was there any moment where you thought about, because Paper Street loves a good bludgeoning, was there a moment where you thought bedpan over and over to the face, or was it?
Oh, well, so
because I feel like that's where you and my brain would have gone.
So bedpan gets thrown, but actually, yes, it was the IV stand, the base of the IV stand. So takes and then like does start bludgeoning with the head and then turns the IV stand around and they get impaled with that. Then Dana is the one who's in the worst shape. And then the original way that Brent dies, the OG Brent death, was actually, there was a fountain in there. There was like a sink, because a lot of these hospital rooms have sinks. She gets thrown against the sink. It bursts into water's like spraying everywhere. So the whole time the fight's in water. Of course, this is just me being fucking crazy. But like, it was great. That's what I want to, I'm like, I will write the craziest version so that way we can get to something that's achievable, knowing that I'm like, well, I've already cut all these stings and I can still do the crazy shit. But it was a fight in water. It was like John Wick shit and all this. And then she's broken there, side of the sink, water spraying everywhere. And then he's bludgeoning. She stabs him with the end of the IV stand that's there. But then he turns around the IV stand and he's like, why won't you just die? And he lifts it in the air to then get her. But when he does, he lifts it in the air and he hits the lights. And then it zaps and then it electrocutes him with all the water that's on him. And it's a conduit. And then that's how he dies. And Dana says, that was the original death of that, which was so much fun. But it's still, you got to electrocute him.
No pun intended. The scenes still play, like I said, jump out of your chair kind of moment when she does that.
It's great.
I like that it was an intentional kill.
Yeah.
It's more satisfying than the pulling the cord. Like she straight up with intent.
Yeah, she went for it. Yeah, she went for it.
So after this holy shit moment, she now exits the hospital room wearing quite the get up. You know, she's got a mix of pajama pants, her coat, Brent's flappy hat. I think Aaron said something on social media about like, we hope that's a Halloween costume this year. We see some
it's so great. Bloody scrubs, yellow and black plaid pants. You know, I think she's wearing.
So comfy.
It was just like, what can you like put together here? And then Brent's poofy hat. That's just completely and utterly ridiculous. But yeah, I hope people will wear it.
Yeah, we cut to her zooming down the street in the police cruiser. She's relaying to the dispatcher that she has the transport vehicle in her sights, gives the license plate and description again. She actually pulls up, gets out, gun pulled, approaches the truck. Dana has the driver go and open the back and then cuff himself to the railing. She enters the back, sees a big wooden crate and struggles to pry it open, and not inside is M. We don't see yet who is in her place, but we cut back to the hospital where Ibrahim finds Deputy Rogers and learns that Dana has left her room. We actually intercut a few pieces here with Dana asking questions of the driver and Ibrahim finding out that not only did she leave, but did some damage in her wake as we see them wheeling Gunderson behind him. Yeah,
he's
Dana.
Like, what happened here? What happened here? Yeah.
It's like almost like an Arlene incident here, but it was just Dana. Sedated Dana of all things. But she's now on the phone with her dad telling him that M is not on this truck. She's got to be on the one that he's heading toward. And what we do see in this truck's crate is the limbless Tommy, on ice. She tells Wayne that the checks are at a cold storage warehouse. He asked about Cooper. He also asked if she heard about Brent, to which she says, yeah, Brent's dead. Brent's the one who shot me. And I kind of appreciate Wayne's like, what? It's a lot of information to take in one thing. But she says she's closer and she will head there right now to the warehouse, that is.
Yeah, it was fun. So one of the constructs of this episode was, okay, you have a kidnapping. I have to go save my kids. How do you, and when you talk about, from a writing perspective, you're just like, how do you add more conflict? How do you make it as tough as it possibly can get for your main character? So have her be shot in the stomach, and all this. So it's like, that's pretty awful. Like, how could she possibly even get there? And if you notice, all the movement of Dana in this episode is very weak, very meager. I mean, she's not doing much beyond the fight itself. But to know that, okay, I have to go, you get this call, and not only that, there's a ticking clock. And there's two trucks going out. M's on one of them. So I got to get someone to truck one and meet at the other truck. That's the only way we can have any chance to saving M. Because once they get to that border, they're going to get out and she's gone, and how are we going to be able to get her? What's going to happen? This is our chance. So you have this ticking clock, but totally separate from that, the man who was trying to kill you is now revealed right in front of you. And right when you're getting ready to leave to go save them, now that you throw that in front of them. So it's just like, oh my God, these things are all coming together. It was really fun to kind of like do that. And then that's only going to slow her down more, that's only going to injure her even more. And, for her to be able to move forward from there and to set in motion and, what's going on and get her dad to trust her, which might be the craziest thing of all of this, is to get him just to trust her to go to the other checkpoint. And then this is where we get to some of that real time stuff. He makes that phone call. Here's your time limit. The clock starts. And then we're a race against that in order to save the people she loves.
Ibrahim, when we're doing the intercut, he overhears the location be relayed on Roger's walkie and connects that the checks are there, and he bolts himself. Wayne tells Dana that the truck is still not there. Dana asks, where the hell is it? And that is when we actually see that said truck has been crashed, turned over, glass broken, and M, with that reviver strength, is broken out of it and is seen walking down the street. We're now in the evening hours here as we've been progressing through this sequence. But yeah, we end on M heading on her own way back to the warehouse.
I will say this is another, so that was how that scene was always kind of meant to go. It was really hit a tree and there was a branch, but It was we never showed the fight in the truck. To me, that was something that didn't need to happen. It was just feel the, where is she? We actually had to repurpose the footage of the cars driving, and we added the scene of like them arguing on the phone, you know, about where is it? The truck should be here by now. So that way you hear the truck should be here by now, and then you cut, and then, oh, there is the truck. It's not where it's supposed to be. There's a dead man. What has happened? There is a branch. If you look, there's a branch there as well. And it's like, holy shit. M walking away. There's body parts. If you look too, there's actually cooler, and there's body parts from the truck was they were transporting more alongside
more charcuterie.
her. Yes. Yeah. More Tommy. But I love that we had a reverse shot too of her, like, you know, walking into the lens. But I just thought there was something cooler about just staying behind her and just seeing the silhouette walking away, you know, the Angel of Death hoodie, you know, in full effect at this point. Yeah.
At the warehouse, Jordan is in a room by herself, chained to a chair. The power goes out and alarms begin to blare. We see the Czechs kind of scrambling in a hallway. Outside of Jordan's door, there's a sudden commotion, slashing sounds, bloody gargles, and then blood begins to seep under the door jamb. Andrew Czech is now coming down the hallway, and M. Cypress is waiting for him, X-Acto knife in hand. Dana then pulls up to the building and passes a dead guard on her way in. A flicker from the breaker box actually showing that the power was indeed cut by M on her way in. In this, we do get a glimpse of something glowing in the water nearby, and that will cut a couple times through here, but we will get back to that for sure. Andrew, approaching, sees Adam on the floor, asks if he's okay. Clearly, he's not. But MFing Cypress, like you said, full Angel of Death here, popping out and goes full rabid spider monkey on this giant man. And just in a scene that would make, you know, the raid filmmakers proud. I mean this, like she legit just starts stabbing him up and down over and over. Not only that, he puts up a fight and he does pull out his weapon and she's able to block it, turn it back to him and have him blow his own head away, which is another great moment here of a hyper violence that really another stand up moment for fans watching the show.
Yeah, this is back to Jordan real quick. When Jordan is trying to break free, I will just say, we are deliberately cutting to the water in that moment. I think we're connecting this a little, or at least hinting at a connection there, which I think is something to flag. And then her, you know, she has strength too, right? Realizing that she has the strength to do this and to break those chains. The kill in the hallway is so special. I do wish we could have seen the Adam Czech kill. I will say that was pretty gnarly. I wrote another absolutely insane kill that we had to cut, and so it's aftermath. But we at least went for it with the Andrew Czech kill, which is fun because the what is a knife that she was using? What was it? Box cutter. Yeah. Oh. You know, which is just a fun weapon to have, but also to the strength to break his arm back the other way and shoot him in the head with his own gun. And then that is the moment when you see her turn back and look at the camera with all that blood. That is the moment from the tease. So we're actually that's what we're getting to her when she was breathing all heavy is after she had killed Andrew, which is fun. But yeah, I think that's so amazing. Major props to, again, our stunt performers and Max. I can't remember the stunt performer there. She's from The Boys.
Nell, I believe is her name.
Is it? But yeah, and I remember the first couple times they were doing iterations of this, and I was like, this is too karate. Like, I don't think revivers don't magically learn karate. So let's pull this back a little bit here and make it more feral. Make it more losing, you know, like she's just lost her mind at this moment and just snapped in what that would be like. And I think it worked great. And how big, you know, Andrew Czech is, you know, for that fight, I just think is pretty gnarly. Super proud of that moment. And I love how shocking it's been for people who have seen it.
Yeah.
It was so many stabs. So many stabs.
Yeah, it was fun.
Dana is seen making her way through the building still, gun drawn, but we cut back to Jordan, who is now using that reviver strength to break the chains and get out of the chair. She exits the room and ends up running into Ibrahim, who's now there in a staircase. He actually gets her and they exit. Dana has now come across the two dead Czech brothers and enters a room that Anthony Czech is hiding in. She spots Cooper also tied to a chair in a little cool little mirror shot here. Coop calls out to her, and that is when Anthony pops out and gives her a few really good stabs of his own, just a couple deep cuts to her, and she is down and in a bad way. Anthony actually talks some shit over top of her, as he's known to do so far, before M comes just barreling in and tackling him. They have a fight here too. M is choking Anthony from the back, who is just kind of stabbing backwards at her. He ends up getting her in the arm really good, and there is a break that kind of gets them free from each other. M steps back, and with a very jiggly arm, she kind of pulls the thing completely back, exposing the bone here. And that is when she proceeds to stab Anthony right up his throat. So this was violent fight scene after another.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite moments of the season. Not just because it's a cool kill, which it is, don't get me wrong, but what's being illustrated here is so her quote unquote weakness, right, as she perceived it and many did growing up, and that we see from in the tease, How Do I, where she's going to be very fragile her whole life. Her bones are going to break easily. And then here, Anthony seemingly either knows this or is just trying to get her off. And then by doing this, he's able to break her arm. So he breaks her arm. So now there's a fracture under the skin. Her arm's now not healing fast. It's going to take a minute to heal. What can she really do to fight him? And then at that moment, she is taking her arm and breaking it. Not necessarily pulling the skin. She's breaking it fully, clean. So it pops out of the skin. And then that becomes a weapon that she can use in order to kill this man. And so she is, in effect, taking the weakness that she's had her whole life and turning it into a strength, right? And using the thing that hindered her life and forced her to be sheltered to now being the thing that she must do in order to survive and to try to save her sister, who, by the way, is in dire straits, and not the band, not the good way. So I love that. It was unbelievably difficult to pull off. The number of applications that you have to kind of make happen, when she's got the fake arm, and this isn't like a CGI thing or whatever. Like, we have a arm appliance that she's taking, and then she grabs it, and then you see the bone pops out of the arm appliance itself. That is in the background. So when Anthony's there and he's like, choking after she's let him go, you see her in the background just do that snap. And now she's got one hell of a weapon, which I think is really, really great. And dare I say, a little profound for what she's able to do.
Got boned to death.
There you go. It was profound until right now. Until right now. That works, though.
We go from that moment to Ibrahim putting Jordan in a vehicle when that familiar noise is echoing from the water. We're seeing a glow in the distance at this point. Ibrahim tells Jordan to stay put and shuts the car door. M gets Cooper loose and tells him to get out now. At this point, Jordan steps back out of the car, walks past Ibrahim. He asks, "What are you doing?" And she says, "It's okay. It's for me." Cooper calls out to her as he exits and says, "Be careful." This is where we see Ibrahim in awe of this glowing something. And this is actually when we get our first look at the passenger in all its ghostly, glowy, soully, yonicky, lobster clawy glory. Yeah, there you go. I knew you'd be good for it, Liz. As Jordan approaches it, people who've read the comics, I'm sure we're waiting for some version of this. I know you'd mentioned some stuff gets changed with the other thing in Blaine's world, but yeah. How did you guys go about creating the passenger?
The puppet itself?
Yeah, like it's very comic accurate. I mean, it looked exactly like I was.
Yeah, we hired, development wise, we hired a creature designer named Ken Barthelme, who has done all of the recent Godzilla movies. So does a lot of those creatures, did a lot of the Fantastic Beasts stuff. He's amazing Eastern European creature designer. That's what he does. We kind of worked a lot on references and stuff like that, but also making sure that it still kind of felt like, the design in the comic is pretty great. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of reasons to deviate, I think, from it, because it is so immediately evocative. So we didn't want to go in some big direction there, but we did want to make it feel more grounded, feel more, our own thing. So yeah, he did an incredible job. And then Steve Kostanski came in, sculpted it, kind of put his spin on it as a puppet. It is a full puppet. And credit goes to Aaron there for really pushing that hard, because we got a lot of pushback on that. Just the fear of the time it would take and all those other things. So
we talk about a lot of pushback, but there was nothing that had more pushback than the passenger because of the money and the time and all this. And could it be a CGI thing? And that's what we were always pushed for. And I'm like, I think we're going to spend the same amount of money and it's not going to look as good, is what I think is going to end up happening. And so what we did was, and real credit to Andy and Flora McEnroy, who plays Jordan, who are reaching up to, a C-stand with a light on it. Andy's covering his mouth and a tear's falling, so there's some pretty amazing stuff that's going on there. And just, trying to describe to them what it is, what's going on. But yeah, it was just like, this has to be right. This just has to feel great. And Luke had already worked so hard and created these amazing designs that I thought were nice because they are very much like the comic, but they are its own thing. And just there's like a texture to it. It's just a little more of a physical being than it is in the comic to me. And the comic just feels more ghostly. And I like what this is. But also you're learning that these are now in the water, which, by the way, probably makes some sense. We're learning that there's some stuff with water that's going on. Ibrahim's looking at the water. There's some stuff. So just FYI. And then Steve Kostanski, who did Psycho Gorman, has a great movie now called Frankie Frico, who's just a wonderful makeup effects artist. and sculpted this first, full scale thing of a head that was, for like a 7 foot tall, 8 foot tall kind of creature. And then that really got us. We were like, okay, yeah. And he did that, by the way, on his own. He was so excited about this that he wanted to sculpt that to start, because we were still fighting. We were having meetings this whole time about like, well, let's just 3D model the designs that Luke had created prior and what's there. And like, that was, how could we do this? But we knew that at minimum, because keep in mind, you shoot the scenes and there's nothing there. The question is, do we put something there? We're gonna have to comp it in either way. So even once we move for it to be a puppet, you're still not shooting it on the day, right? You're doing this later. And Samir had a lot of experience with this on Chucky and how they do the Chucky stuff, and you shoot all those elements later and then you comp these two pieces together. So what we knew is no matter what, whether it's CGI or it's a puppet, we're still not shooting on the day. So that at least allowed us to move forward with our current production schedule. And so there was this continual like, well, can we? And we just held till the very, very end and just kept fighting and kept trying to save money for it and what it could work. And I'm so grateful to what Steve and his team were able to do. And, being there while we're shooting all these puppet stuff was amazing. And then the puppet itself is only about, maybe 3.5 feet, 4 feet tall. And it's scaled. And you scale it with that and to do all the movement and everything. And it's, I think it looks gnarly, and very proud of it. And once you comp in the puppet, then you're adding in all these kind of ethereal elements that kind of give it a more angelic kind of quality, alien-like quality in what's there. So, and just the way Ghost Effects, who did our comps and all this, just the way that the light undulates in it, the way the eyes move. But the last second we changed the mouth, it was originally the mouth kind of opened and they kept saying it looked like a grumpy old man. And so then we had to change the mouth, and now we went with a vertical slit, which I thought was really cool, and how it vibrates when it talks and all that. But yeah, it's just a cool design. It was a big thing because this is in the comic, right off the bat. It's first few pages, you're seeing this thing. So we wanted to feel its presence and kind of trickle it in and then surprise people with like, yeah, there's an alien-like creature here. And what does that mean? And it's been fun to see the reaction now that it's aired on Sci-Fi with that. And I can't wait for the Peacock drop here and see what more people are thinking it is and connecting the dots. But yeah, this was a massive, massive, massive part of this show and will continue to be a big part going forward for the rest of the season. Yeah,
quick tidbit too. Not about the passenger, but Aaron mentioned Andy and Flora. Flora was really sick this day. So props to this little girl. It was her last day on set and she was so sick. And also it was cold AF. So like the moment where it kills me every time when Jordan turns around and says, "Thank you for being so kind to me." I mean, part of that is good acting because she's a very good actor, but she was also very, very sick and tired. And you know what I mean? Like it was just perfect storm there that happened. And I just think she's amazing little actor to have come in and done all that under those circumstances. And I thank her parents as well, who are wonderful for getting her through that.
But wait, I do want to clarify. We did not ask a sick girl to work. So what happened was she was sick. We were rescheduling and canceling everything and reworking everything so she wouldn't be there. And then at the end and trying to figure out how to shoot these elements later, we were moving that in our schedule. And then her mom, who's also, this isn't like Nikki, her mother, who's just wonderful, is also one of our hairdressers. It wasn't like, get my kid out there and you got to do it anyway, like that shit wasn't happening. It was, we were like, look, it's cold. It's okay. We'll figure it out. Like we want to make sure she's all right. But then she like took a nap, was feeling a lot better. And we're like, okay, now let's just play it by ear. Let's see how you're feeling. So we came in and we did the scene of her in the chair and it was like, okay, she was feeling good. And we're like, do you want to do this? We're going to go outside. And she's like, I can do it. And we're like, okay. And she was such a trooper and it was amazing. And honestly, I think the fact that she was a little under the weather helped with the delivery even of just like, it feels there's like a weakness and like giving in and what was there and a softness to her delivery. That was another one of those first draft, this is nothing like the comic. And, I just wrote those, thank you for being so kind to me. And I got teary-eyed writing it. I was like, oh my God, this feels right, and you think about what she's been through, and she's got students with pencils trying to stab her, and her own parents don't want to pick her up, and everybody, she's shunned by so many people. She's about to go into this Riverside camp probably, pretty soon. Like, all these horrible things are going to happen to her. But the Cypress family, Ibrahim, Cooper, Dana, were so, well, not Wayne. Wayne was not very kind to her, but the rest of the Cypresses were and Ibrahim. And for someone who's never acted before, and to be at such a huge moment, our second pilot, as we call it, the pinnacle, the climax of this episode, she's got to, reach her hand up and look and just feel like she's understanding the connection that she's having. And then to deliver that line, "Thank you for being so kind to me," is breaks my heart. And she deserves to be a star, and very excited for her future. She's such a great actor.
No, for sure. Yeah, she approaches the passenger first, and then we actually cut back to M, who is now holding Dana in her arms in dire straits. Money for nothing, checks for free. Her hand over the stabbed abdomen.
Checks aren't free,
sobbing.
Right?
Yeah.
Checks are right? Sorry.
Checks are free of this mortal coil at this point. Yes,
God.
sobbing and asking her to hold on. And begins to cry, and we get some dark, bloody tears coming down her face. And as those tears fall, her hand begins to make a similar glow to the passenger. And that is when we do come back to Jordan. She reaches toward the entity, has the line that breaks everybody's heart again. She sells it. Andy McQueen here just reacting in this emotional mix of like awe and disbelief, which he sells wonderfully, hand over the face. And we watch with Andy, or with Ibrahim, that they do become intertwined, and she becomes one with the passenger, and they do disappear. And that is when we actually do go back to M, hand on Dana, and that glowing touch has now begun healing her wounds. And Dana looks like she's beginning to come to, but not before we call it on episode 6.
Yeah.
So
this is another one of those things that, are in the comic. The Black Tears, Tears of Blood are in the comic. And it's interesting, like, just in an M, healing is not in the comic, so like finding a way to kind of connect this and what this could be was really, really fun. And it was something that felt like it just made a lot of sense. It feels like it should be from the comic, but it's not. It's one of those things that just kind of tracks for us. But again, taking something, the Black Tears, and how those happen in a very different way, more innocuously. They happen more often with all revivers in the comic. But here, to track this to this moment, I think was really, really important. And also, we always knew, I remember the amount of times where people, even though we had a Bible we delivered to NBC and everything, and to all of our partners, but then when we shoot Dana, you can't shoot Dana. What are you doing? And then it's like, now Dana's in a hospital. We can't have her a mess for this whole season, guys. This isn't going to work. And we're like, we have a plan. And yeah, I can say definitively that she is healing her. And, big credit to Lydia Ainsworth and Alex Cuervo and the music, one of my favorite cues that's ever been written for anything I've ever been a part of. Just the crescendo, the music, I get chills, goosebumps every single time I hear it. I think it's so special. And then that actually leads to another piece of music from Lydia, which is actually a needle drop of her song. I think it's a Moonstone. It might be White Shadow. But either way, it's when the tear drops, and we time Ibrahim's tear to dun 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 as the song. And I'm just like, oh, so good. Props to Kurt Lobb, who's our editor on this episode, and just how we were able to do a lot of cross-cutting. And actually, that also is props to Samir, because originally we were doing these scenes separately with the passenger, and all this was actually happening inside. So Dana was there and the passenger came in, and they were all in the same room and seeing this. But we decided to do it outside and inside, and we can cross-cut, which I think worked even better and allowed more of a, what's happening with them and Dana and what's happening to the passenger to be separate but also connected. And then, hey, the light that she's healing is that yellow, right? Which is similar to the light that maybe we're seeing, at the tent when Jordan touches it, which he willingly does. She's going toward it. It's for me. All that stuff means something.
I don't.
I see Liz looking all, yes, okay.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
No, this, again, called it the repilot, and it did reset the table in a few ways, not only introducing the passenger at the end, but just the way to reset Dana, everything. M is now who M is, Dana's now who she is again, in a different role from each other. Again, I love the flashback. We obviously love the couple of hyper-violent moments in this one that really, maybe it's because TV and we're poisoned by the fact that there's never been too much great horror TV. It's gotten a lot better in recent years with some of the Flanagan shows and things like that. But just to see something hyper-violent come out of nowhere on a network show is always fun. I appreciated both the Brent fight and then M's fights in the hallway, which we don't usually jump forward with like speculation bits. We'll still talk about it on the back end here, but I did see a few people tweeting, and I think Aaron liked and agreed that a couple people proposed to be a good Halloween Horror Nights maze, to have the derelict, refrigeration warehouse be a walkthrough with everything that happened.
Oh my God, that'd be the coolest thing
ever.
One of my first jobs was, I worked at Universal. I know Shawn also worked at Universal. And I worked on one of the Halloween Horror Nights promos, the one called The Director from like 15 years ago. And I actually directed one of those spots, one of the first things I ever directed. I was there for that when I was in my early 20s. But there's so much going on here. I mean, I think, you end the tease on Dana holding M. You end this on M holding Dana. Dana's going to have to protect your sister. And it ends with her with M protecting her sister, and the power dynamics. It is the most proud of things I've ever created. I've never been more proud of something I've created than this episode. I whether it's, some people, violence, different things, it might not be for them. That's fine. It is so for me, and absolutely my baby in every way. And it's my favorite episode of the series, partially because of what it's going to do to the other episodes. There's other episodes I love, like probably on a 1-to-1 just as much. But what this does is it changes things, and it makes those other episodes even better, but it starts with these moments here. So yeah, really, really proud of this episode.
I loved that as violent as it was just as goofy.
Yeah.
There were enough goofy moments. I really liked it. The fight scene reminded me of Shaun of the Dead a little bit.
Yeah. No, it's fun. Like tone. I mean, like we wanted to play with tone in this series, and to have an episode that is hyper violent, that has goofiness, and you're playing Never Surrender and Piss on Me and this stuff and Lester and silly things that are happening, right? Harry and the Hendersons jokes within an episode of that level of hyper violence, but then also the level of emotional drama and what's going on to where people are crying watching this episode, and a lot of people are crying. And so if you can pull all those off, like that's when I'm most excited about television, movies, anything, is when you can try to play. And it's hard in 42 minutes to kind of do this without feeling like whiplash. But you talk about filmmakers and you're trying to kind of find your voice in different things. And, one of the things that I've realized, I think that in particular with myself, I think I want to make things that play with tone, that can both be funny and then terrifying and then melodramatic in the right ways, all the same. And it's not just this, because I've done movies that are all this and then all this, and they didn't quite click for me in the right way, but there's elements I want to take from each. And this really illustrates that.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
I mean, genre blending is always fun, and some of our favorite things are exactly that, stuff that mixes horror with comedy, and that's life. When people get real mad about like a really dire movie having a joke in it, or a really comedic movie having a serious moment, like that's what the world is. It's like you got to have levity and darkness. You got to have darkness and some light. So yeah, the Edgar Wright, his Cornetto trilogy does handle horror comedy, I think, really well. Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz especially. But yeah, you guys nailed it. I mean, bravo on this one again. I shouldn't have said doozy so early. This one was a doozy.
It was a doozy.
Yeah.
Hey, raise your hand if you cried.
I don't know if I cried. I got emotional when Aaron said the line that hit him was Jordan's second line, but actually when she says it's okay, it's for me, I was like, oh, that's the one that actually hit me harder. It's like, because again, we'll find out more without jumping ahead, but yeah, like that was very much on her. And I think you guys are wise not to show the passenger that way, that Ibrahim just has this story that he can tell, and it's just his point of view, and hopefully people can believe him that he just saw a big, giant, glowy, ghostly thing. But it'll make some sense. We will not jump too far ahead. But yeah, we will let you gentlemen go. Again, congratulations on what was I think my favorite episode to date too. But yes, they've all been banger after banger so far. But yeah, this was so much fun for a lot of reasons, and look forward to talking 107 with you on the next one.
Can't wait to bang again.
Boned to death.
Always.
I'm working on my transitions.
There you go. All right, till 107. Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you again to the gents for the discussion on what was an insane 6th episode. We're going to move now to a chat with an actor, a writer, a professional wrestler, a fighter, a Renaissance man, if you will. You may have seen him in films including Girl on the Third Floor and shows including the Star series Heels. And many folks know him as the Second City Saint, the voice of the voiceless, the best in the world, a.k.a. WWE superstar and Chicago's own CM Punk. And of course, if you're tuning in here, you may have also seen him wreak havoc on the town of Wausau and the Cypress Sisters as Anthony Check on a Revival. He is Mr. Phil Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk. Larry's dad, thank you so much for joining us on the program here.
Hell of an introduction. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so glad to have you and make the time for this to talk Revival, especially this particular episode, number 6, called Bloodlines, that you were heavily featured in. So this will not be an interview about pro wrestling, as much as I would personally like that, and Lord knows you've done enough of them, but the business has been such a big part of your life that I do just want to ask you before we jump into Revival talk, is there a certain moment or a match or a wrestling star or even a local show you attended in your youth that kind of made you want to first pursue that as a career?
Gosh, we're in the midst of doing Saturday night's main event on NBC again. And I think that probably had a large imprint on my fandom, like seeing it for the first time, probably through there, seeing Roddy Piper. Those are my earliest memories, the things that jump out at me that made me want to go, oh, I want to do that. Piper, especially because Piper was surrounded by these guys that were giant. And Piper, even though he was a big dude, he was considered small, believe it or not. So I looked at that when I was a kid and I was like, oh, okay. I saw myself in him. Representation. It's important.
Yeah. And one of the great talkers of all time, and you're right there along with him on that Mount Rushmore. So, you got it. You know what you are.
It's debatable.
And also, lots of wrestlers have said the business helped them in immeasurable ways when it transitions to acting, be it the live aspect, be it the single take nature of it all, and of course the physicality. Is there one particular thing you kind of learned in your years as a performer in the ring that made acting maybe an easier than it might normally have been transition for you?
I think for anybody that's watching this or watching any movie or television show with a pro wrestler in it, I think it's kind of eye-opening for them to look at it from the perspective that what we do every week live, sometimes, some of us have had 20 plus year careers. It's Broadway, it's live television and there's no cuts, there's no redos. You can't do a reshoot. There's no ADR post-production. You tune in, the red light goes on, you're on. And if you screw up, if you puke, you forget your lines, you fall flat on your face, it's there for everybody to see. So I think that really helps a guy like, me or Cena, Batista, Rock, anybody that transitions over, not necessarily to make a career out of it, but just even if you're like dabbling your toes in it, it's just like the wrestling life and the lifestyle prepares you for Hollywood the same as doing any kind of live Broadway play, any type of deal like that. Sometimes you're doing it in front of 6 people, sometimes you're doing it in front of 60,000, and every situation's different. Every performance is drastically different.
Awesome. Outside of pro wrestling and acting, is there anything that you super geek out about that might surprise people?
There's definitely things I super geek out about. I'm not sure if it would really surprise people.
Okay.
No, it's the same old stuff. If I'm not working, I try to be a homebody. I like hanging out with my dog and my wife. My wife and I will play video games together, which is sometimes very, very stressful. We've recently, I'm bad. She's super into the Resident Evils. And I think we just played one of the remastered Silent Hills. And I think we beat that. And playing horror video games with my wife makes me fall in love with not only her all over again, but the horror genre. Because when there's jump scares, she's sitting right next to me. And I mean, screaming in my ear. If she had a bucket of popcorn, it would be in the air. And I'm like, haven't you played this game before? But it's still it still gets her. So it's fun.
I react the same way when I play Tomb Raider.
Wow.
It's a lot of yelling and Tiger's surprising me. So I understand.
Yeah. Other things that, God, what do I geek out for? I try to collect old comic books. Everyone's into the graded slab books now. And I like to get a lot of the tentpole stuff, first Iron Man, first Thor, first Cap, first Doom. I think my passion would probably be the horror stuff, like the EC books and all those famous covers that are somebody deemed too gruesome for children. And the reason we have a comic code now.
Speaking of comics, you've had the good fortune to write for Marvel Comics, among others, including for Drax the Destroyer, speaking of Dave Bautista, Shang-Chi and others. Do you still have an itch at all to do more of that? Or is there like a certain character out there you'd love to still take a crack at maybe?
Itch might not be the best word. It's a load management thing at this point in my life. Right. Writing might be one of the more difficult things I've ever done. I feel like I'm more of a physical guy. So if you tell me like go run 6 miles, that's less daunting to me than writing 6 pages and having an editor and having deadlines. I don't do well with deadlines. I will wait until 11:58 at night when something's due at midnight and start writing. So real bad at deadlines and stuff like that. The whole way I got into writing for mine, I did some stuff for DC too, but the Marvel thing was I pitched to Axel Alonso in a bar in San Diego one time, my Punisher story, to which he replied, "Oh, we can't print any of that, but you want to do this?" And it's kind of opened the door. Always open to writing other stuff. But like I said, it's a time thing. It's a load management. It's difficult enough trying to balance wrestling full time with any other kind of production, TV, movie, and stuff like that. So knock on wood, so far, so good. I've done a pretty flawless job of it.
Awesome. I guess we should talk about the show. So,
yeah, probably.
Okay. So all 3 of the Czech brothers turned out to be such assholes, but their mom is portrayed as this sweet little chicken drawing weirdo. So I have headcanon that the Czech's father must be a piece of work. And that's not really a question. That's kind of a statement. But my question is, did you base Anthony off, or any of his mannerisms or speech, off of anyone, or pull inspiration from a certain person or villain?
No, So what I did with him, I figured my time was so limited, and knowing the entire character's arc, I wanted to make it kind of more cliche bad guy and be as despicable and as sociopathic as I possibly could, in turn to help the character M. Or going back to wrestling, like my job as a bad guy is to make the good guy. So I literally kind of looked at it like that. I didn't feel, and maybe I'm not experienced enough when it comes to acting, I didn't feel I needed to really build Anthony Czech up that much. To me, it was just kind of basic, like be the biggest dirtbag you possibly can to help the audience to see M, stab you in the face.
Yep. Well, good job.
No, mission accomplished.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
A true dastardly heel, not the cool heel that too many do these days.
I definitely didn't want to be cool. No, not at all.
I don't know. That leather jacket begs to differ. So again, speaking of Bautista, you guys have both joked about not getting certain roles, like the male lead in a rom-com maybe, and even joking, I think, that you two should be the co-leads of one somewhere on social media. But is there a dream role out there for you, or maybe just a type of character you've kind of not had the chance to play that you'd like to sink your teeth into?
Anything that takes me outside of my comfort zone, I think would be really cool. And, I read for like 2 things a week. You know what I mean? Like if people ask me like what I did for a living, I would tell them I get rejected on a weekly basis. So I cast a wide net. I try to read for a ton of stuff. Very seldomly will I get something and go, oh God, I'm really not feeling that, because to me, it's like, even if I can send something in it, if it's not the greatest casting director, or somebody will see me and they might have an idea for something else, like that's kind of how the business works. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But yeah, I accept any and all things because I look at everything like a challenge. So yeah, rom-com, send them my way. I think it could be really, really fun. Plus, I think it's, I see how people react to other people. Like, I think Cena's doing such a great job, but every time he gets to do something where he's silly or it's comedy, people are always like really, really impressed. But that's the John I know. Real loose, cutting up behind the scenes, making a joke of everything, trying to make everybody, smile, trying to make everybody laugh. But then on screen, John Cena is very different than John Cena. So I think people would be surprised if I got to flex different muscles in different roles. And I can't wait for the opportunity to do so.
Do you have to audition for stuff, or do people like send you things and then they
both? I mean, both. I audition for stuff. And
did you have to audition for this?
No, this one I just got. Again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I was visited by the ghost of Christmas past. Now, when I on set for Girl on the Third Floor, Aaron and Tim Seeley came by and they brought me like revival books, and they're like, hey, you know, and I was like, yeah, I read this, you know. So they were pleasantly surprised that I was familiar with the source material. But this is back in, it's got to be almost all of 10 years ago when they're telling me that they're developing this to be a television show and they wanted me to be a part of it. And in this world, you hear that a lot. Hey, we're working on this and we got, you know, great. You know, and I don't count my chickens until they're chicks, you know? So this one, I was pleasantly surprised that like, yeah, okay, 10 years later, hey, we're doing this. This is what we want. We'd love for you to be part of it. And it was kind of difficult because I think in terms of the entire production, I think I'm the only American on the entire thing. And I'm talking about people like in front of and behind the camera. I think I was the only dirty American.
Right.
Yeah.
Liz is laughing because that's funny. And my follow-up question, literally, in the next thing on the doc is, outside of showrunners Aaron and Luke, you might have been one of the only other Americans in this whole cast and crew. And I was going to ask you, was showing up to a time zone that most folks in the States don't even know covers part of North America, much less exists at all, and to a tiny marine, you know, maritime community on Prince Edward Island, did you feel it all like a fish out of water, or like were the people there so accommodating that it was just not even fazed you?
Well, both. I felt like a fish out of water because I did not even realize that the Atlantic time zone existed.
None of us.
Right.
I just found out just now. What are you talking about?
And so I found out when I landed, right? Because I think it definitely wasn't a straight shot. I think I flew from LA to maybe either Toronto or Montreal. I think it was Toronto, and then connected and went to Saint John, or maybe landed in hell. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know.
So far east, a new time zone, Liz. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. So for anybody watching, the Atlantic time zone is an hour ahead of Eastern Standard Time. So I think I took off at like 9 a.m. in LA, and I wound up landing at like 1 a.m. I was just like, I was all discombobulated, couldn't sleep. But I mean, the people were amazing. There was like this little farmer's market next door to my hotel, and I got up and I got coffee and I went walking around, and man, people were like just giving me things. There was like this fish market, and this guy was like, hey, I'm a huge fan. Like, here, have some candied salmon. And I was just like, great. That was my breakfast. It was candied salmon and coffee, the breakfast of champions. And I was just walking around like eating this salmon jerky out of a bag, like cool, like waiting to go to my fitting, you know? And yeah, everybody was a sweetheart. There was like 3 different dogs on set. So everything was awesome.
They let dogs on set there? I want to go to Canada.
Oh yeah. There's normally set dogs. Some like makeup artist has a dog. Costume design has a dog. Oh, yeah, there's dogs. There's dogs.
Breaking news. This is breaking news.
It's the best part of doing anything. Like I'll walk into a makeup trailer, like when I was on Mayans, and boom, there's a dog. And it's just like so bad because I can't remember anybody's name, but I will remember the dog's name. So, you know, I'll walk in, Peanut, and not say hi to anybody else. It's kind of rude, but
no, the right thing to do. Oh, I have a question. Did you have any input on any of your fight scene, how any of your fight scenes played out?
I think I did, if I remember properly. But that night we shot that fight scene, it was all of like a 16-hour day. So yeah, you know, we had stunt coordinator. We both had stunt doubles, and I'm more, because of my background in wrestling and fighting, like I'm always electing to do as much as I possibly can. Now, if they're going to throw me off a building, I would probably jubilantly say, yeah, let's do that. But the smart thing to do would be let the professional stunt person do that. But as a viewer of anything, I am always taken out when I watch something and, okay, that's clearly not the actor doing that, and they can use different camera angles and really quick cuts and fast motion to kind of disguise it. But I felt like that scene needed to be like really gritty and really authentic, and I felt it would have been a bit of a disservice to use the stunt doubles. So I asked to Romy, and she was on board. You know, like everyone's always like totally shocked. Like some people don't like to be touched, and I get it. They don't, you know, they're there to act. They don't want to be touched, you know, but I'm all like, yeah, you can jump on me. And she was like, wait, really? I can do, you know? And so it got her excited, and everyone was like kind of more into it. And I think that gave it more of a real feel. Whether that was my input or not, you know, it's a team effort for sure. They could have told me to shut up and just do as you're told. You know?
Well, it looked great.
Yeah,
It looked
absolutely.
like, just like a crazy spider monkey all over you.
That was the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we first see her do like a raid style stabbing of your not big brother, but your bigger brother
He's
Andrew
big.
before she
They're
goes. Yeah.
bigger than me.
Both
Yeah.
those guys are giants.
They got some size. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
no kidding.
What was the first movie or show that scared you as a kid or gave you nightmares?
Oh my God. Legit gave me nightmares and this is kind of topical because Macon Blair's re-imaging of the Toxic Avenger is coming out as Toxic Avenger, believe it or not.
Wow.
And there's a scene in the movie where the bullies run over a kid on a 10-speed bicycle. And then they like gleefully celebrate and they stop and they like take pictures and his head's all smashed on the road. And like watching, I think as a little kid, I could be like, okay, Bruce from Jaws isn't real. That's a mechanical shark. Jason Voorhees isn't real. Michael Myers isn't real. These are all like kind of fantastical things. And I think because they were just high school bullies, it was like real to me and it was possible. So I scared the shit out of me. And I remember vividly like having nightmares about that, but also fascinated because like, I wanted to watch it again. And I wanted to, okay, so what else is out there that I can watch? It's kind of like the gateway to becoming a huge fan of the horror genre, I think.
No, absolutely. Something about the realism of violence opposed to anything supernatural, which kind of is overbearing sometimes in U.S. horror stuff. They have to make it an entity of some kind and not just the horribleness of human beings. But so wrap it up here in a moment. But before we go, you're also a big music head. I know you're friends with some of the Rancid folks like Lars. Do you have a very memorable or standout kind of concert experience that you would cite as maybe your favorite moment that you've been able to either attend or just be part of?
I mean, was in '95. I saw the Ramones, their retirement tour. So it's cool that I got to see them. But it was also like Ramones. What was the bill? It was like Metallica, Ramones, Rancid. That's crazy, And it was very. I remember the audience was very like metal kids versus punk kids. It was, there was a lot of violence that day.
Yeah. It was the 90s. We identified ourselves by what we listened to.
100%.
Yeah.
They were like, the metal kids were mad that the punk kids were there. They're like, why are you here, Metallica? And we're like, fuck you, the Ramones. Like, what? Like very strange. Very, the weird, the unfortunate tribalistic parts of humanity that are probably no bueno. I've seen a lot of cool stuff though. I recently just saw Rancid play Wrigley Field. That's insane. One of the better concerts I think I've ever seen in my life was, I think it was at the Vic Theater in Chicago, was Rancid, Rocket from the Crypt, which is one of my favorite. It's like your favorite band's favorite band. And a local band by the name of Slapstick opened up. That was fun because I loved all three bands. And it's funny looking back at it, like it was like a war of attrition just being in the pit for those three sets. Like, I don't even think I'd last 15 minutes now. I just feel like I'm too old for this.
Right.
I don't think it was Lemmy's last concert. I think it might have been his second to last concert, but it's kind of topical because unfortunately Ozzy just passed away, and it gave me some pause. And I thought about the last time I saw Lemmy, and we hung out in his trailer, and we left. And as we were leaving, I was just like, damn, I wanted to kind of be a fan and ask Lemmy for a picture, but I didn't. And then Lars was like, let's go back. Come on, we got it. And we walked back in, and Lemmy's standing there, and he's like, you didn't have, I thought you were going to want a picture. We got to get a picture, So I'm glad I got that moment with Lemmy. I've been fortunate to see a lot of cool stuff. Hopefully that will absolutely continue.
Are you going to Riot Fest?
I'm not allowed.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to go to Riot Fest. I'm on the ban list, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. There's a NDA in place, unfortunately.
Good. All right. I'll get to the bottom of it.
Way to bring it down, Liz. No said about that. But yeah, you mentioned before, I even had it in the notes too, about how Tim Seeley had approached you with as far back as Girl on the Third Floor. And again, Revival being in development for so long in various states, it's a minor miracle that anything gets made at all. It's more miraculous that things get made and they are good. And we are so glad that at the end of the day, all these years later, it was you who was able to breathe life into the role of Anthony Check. You made a lasting impression, on a lot of folks with this role, and we are so grateful to have been able to speak with you about it, about the show, and more here. So thank you, Bill Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk, for taking the time with us.
Pleasure's all mine, and really hats off to Aaron and Tim. And Mike Norton too. You know, he was the artist on the book, but like you said it's a miracle anything gets made. Stuff is in developmental hell for like so long, and then a lot of things get made, and I'm not super happy with it as a fan of the source material, but this one is dead on, and the cherry on top for me is, oh, I'm in it, you know, like, so that's even cooler. But this show has been, it's just so, it's like whip smart, very well written, and Melanie and Romy, my personal joy watching those two interact on screen. It's just like you really feel that they're sisters, and they're both like so good at the top of their game. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the episodes.
No, absolutely. And thank you for putting them through hell. It was fun to watch. Episode 6 for sure. In the vein of you going back to Ask Lemmy, please just let me say, if I don't ever get the chance to, you've been my favorite wrestler for nearly 20 years. Going back to you and Joe, Ring of Honor.
Thank you.
You've got me back into wrestling twice, so you've done that to a lot of people.
I apologize. Sorry about that.
No. It's a drug. You know, I know we're all supposed to be drug free, following in the footsteps of our heroes, but wrestling is a drug.
Well,
as you know, you're still in it. You know,
I appreciate the kind words. Yes, very much so.
Certainly. And thank you again just for taking the time with us. So we will keep you no further and go and give Larry a kiss, and maybe April too.
I will. Thanks, guys.
Right.
Appreciate
Take care. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Our thanks again to CM Punk for taking the time with us there. As we've been talking about, that episode 6 was nuts, and in all the best ways. Lots of OMG, lots of wow, lots of holy shit reactions on the night across social media for sure. We are finding, from the fights and the kills to the reveal of the passenger, which prompted a whole lot of responses. But we can run through a couple reactions we highlighted here.
We've got Kat at KCMore18 on X said, I'm not sure what I just watched, but holy smokes, that was such a great episode of TV.
Yes, agree. Shiloh Adams on X also said, this week's episode of Revival, holy shit. The second half was particularly insane, and with that ending, just thrilling, bold, wondrous TV that I'm so glad exists. Hope it gets renewed ASAP. Same.
Same. Yami on the TV Time thread said, this was one of the best episodes I've seen recently of any TV show. Just wow. I mean, yeah.
Mason also on the TV Time thread. Best episode yet. Lots of action. Dana can't trust anybody. At this point, that doctor could be evil. Just everybody in her circle is turning on her. But we have already talked to Andy McQueen, a.k.a. Dr. Ibrahim, and again, he would never.
He would never. Not our sweetheart.
No.
Casey at the Vegan Erper on X said, the episode starts with Dana holding M and ends with M holding Dana. I am emotionally unwell. It was violent, it was emotional, it was beautiful, and it hurt, and it was fucking great. That's my favorite poem. Oh.
Regular Robert Frost over here.
Yeah.
Rune on the TV Time thread said, this episode isn't just a turning point to the story, it's a test of loyalty, pain, and identity. The performances reached a level of emotional maturity rarely seen, especially in the silent moments that spoke louder than words. Cinematography was poetic, with every frame saying what the dialogue couldn't. The plot took an unexpected turn, revealing hidden layers in the characters as if we were seeing them for the very first time. And that ending, the kind that leaves you staring at the screen, unsure whether to cry or applaud. Episode 6 isn't just part of the series, it's the beating heart of it. So yeah, a lot of praise for every aspect of this episode, technical wise, writing wise, action wise. We saw several folks, pondering who the big boss, who that might be, who it could be, would be. Call me crazy. I don't actually believe Mr. Aaron Koontz when he says it is going to be Vladimir Putin. We'll have to trust him until we find out otherwise. But yeah, thank you for all the comments from everybody across social media, from the email revival@paperstreetpictures.com. If you guys want to send any kind of thoughts, any comments or questions for the showrunners, we'll ask them accordingly. That's maybe your best way to participate if you want to be a part of the show. But yeah, we also love the social media reactions. We'll keep those coming too. So Liz, I want to thank you again for joining us. I want to thank Aaron B. Koontz, Luke Boyce, your Revival creators, showrunners, and EPs for their insights and stories about episode 6. They had a lot of good stuff on this one. They were giving us a lot of alt versions of what that fight was going to be with Brent, so we appreciate that. Episode 6 is in the books, as is this compendium recap. We appreciate you all tuning in, and we will find you on the next one to discuss episode 7, Too Many Secrets. Again, for CM Punk, who we appreciate taking the time, for Aaron, for Luke, for Liz, I am Sean Talley, someone who could also use a pterodactyl shot right about now, saying we will see you back here soon.